Hi, I'm going to take you through an activity I use with my students to build vocabulary by using knowledge of word roots. So it's called word root vocabulary creation. And the way it works is I give my students a whole bunch of word roots. We have 12 of them here. And we then have to pick one. We'll give each student a turn at picking one. They pick one, we write it down next to the number, and then you have to make 12 words containing that root, and they have to be 4 nouns, 4 verbs, and 4 adjectives. So I find this is very useful at getting students to change the form of words. Now there's a few rules. You cannot end with ed. Lots of students were doing that. er, ing, ly, I don't really want any adverbs, or or. So or and er is to eliminate the very common noun forms. So normally we'd play it as a game where the students would pick and then they would race to be the first one to get to 12 words, and they'd also be racing against me. So yeah, you would get points, usually 10 points for every correct word, and you had to know what the word meant. Alright, so I'll show you how I would do this. I'll pick one of the roots. Let's start with a reasonably hard one, corp. That means to do with the body. So the first word students would probably think of would be corpse, dead body. Alright, let's go to an adjective. One I can think of is corpulent. Basically means fat, right? So that's to do with the body, a fat body. Verbs, well, let's go back to nouns. I'll go with corporation. A corporation is a actual body, usually a business. Incorporation, I can just add a prefix to that, alright, and that'll give me a verb now too. Now I can do the verb form of incorporation, incorporate. Alright, can come up with any more nouns or verbs or adjectives. Corpulent, I can think of another adjective, corporeal. That means physical, like in physical form, as opposed to spiritual, corporeal form. And what about corporal? It's an adjective, so that could be a rank in the army, or it could be to do with punishment, bodily punishment, corporal punishment. Alright, so you get the idea there. Yeah, corpse a pretty hard one actually to try and fill out all of those spaces. Now I'll try another one. What about ject? J-E-C-T. Alright, so ject means to throw, basically. So the first one you can think of as a verb to throw would be to project, right? And then you could get some now you can't do projector because I'm not allowing or or er, but you could use projectile, which is basically a bullet. A bullet is a form of projectile, so anything, you know, a sling from a slingshot, that'd be a projectile. Right, other forms of ject. So prefix knowledge is important here because you can create object. That could also be a noun, of course, alright, but here we'll say it's to object to something, subject, to make someone do something, reject. And then you can get the different forms. You could have adjectives, objective. Now that could also be a noun. Again, see, you could put that in the noun spot. When it's a noun, your objective, it's your goal, but as an adjective it needs to be based on fact. Subjective, based on opinion. Let's do a noun for reject, rejection. Oops, spelling error there. Rejection. Adjectives. Now I could do one like such as abject, which means really, really bad. So that one's a bit harder to link to the root, so I might not do that. How about as a noun I throw in conjecture? That means to sort of make a guess. So you're throwing up figuratively your guess. Alright, so that's how I would go about doing ject. But if I pick one more, what's a reasonably hard one? Penned, maybe. Alright, penned means to hang or weigh. Okay, so a literal noun, pendulum, swings back and forth. It's a good one to use in metaphors. Let's go with a suspend. Alright, then the noun form of that would be suspension. Expend, noun form, expenditure. Okay, what about another noun? Appendage. That's like a body part is like an appendage, something that is hanging from the body. So you can see that you could even link pend and corp to each other. Appendage is part of your corporeal form. What about some adjectives? Do I have some adjectives for pence? See, often the adjectives will change to pence, like expensive. You know, so it's a little bit harder to do the adjectives there. Can I think of any? Okay, I can get expense, suspend. Would have to think about that. Yeah, that one I might have to change the root a little bit to allow the adjective form. Verbs. Append is the verb form of appendage. Alright. Oh, now I'm getting it. Now that I thought of a verb, it'll help me get the adjective. So I've got depend. Right. It hangs on that, and then we can do dependent and independent. So you see, by doing this type of activity, you really come to understand the link between words. You know, why dependent and independent mean what they do. You know, how they link to depend. Again, literally, another one would be pendant. Right, a pendant is something that hangs around your neck. All right, maybe I'll do one more just to see another hard one. FAC, fact. All right, this is a good one to talk about because I actually learned a word the other day while I was doing a vocab test. It was factotum, which basically means a servant. So now it makes sense because the servant does things, makes things for you. All right, another noun that's a factory. Again, makes things. Let's do a verb. Manufacture. Manufacture, to make. Again. Adjectives. Can we come up with any adjectives? What about verb? Deface, to ruin something, right? So, and efface, to erase something as well. Nouns, we could say, well, let's put it in adjective. See, a strategy I use is I'll go through the alphabet. I'll put letters in front of the words I'm doing to try and help jog my mind into thinking of words. I'm thinking of adjectives like facile. So facile in one context means achieved easily. It also has a negative connotation definition, which means you don't really look very far beneath the surface of something. All right, some other nouns. We have factor. So a factor is an important thing that contributes to something, that makes it the way it is, and a synonym for that is facet. You can see facet and factor are very similar. All right, so I do this activity basically every week where I'll change the roots, right? And I really do observe that students become much faster at learning words. So maybe I'll show you one that's rupt, right? Which means to break. So you can actually think about this one in alphabetical order. I try to teach it this way. You put an A before rupt, A-B, and you come up with abrupt, which means quickly done. Then you move to B, you go bankrupt, to break the bank, basically. Noun, bankrupt. C, that's a noun a lot of students don't know. C, this could be an adjective or verb. Let's put it in verb. Corrupt, to basically ruin something. As an adjective, it means immoral or unethical. Let's put as a noun, corruption. All right, then we move to D, another verb. Disrupt, noun, disruption. E, one that most of the students know, erupt, and then another, eruption. Then you would skip a few letters. I don't think that you'd probably go all the way to I to be interrupt. as a verb. We could have put interruption in the nouns. Let's put interruptive in the adjectives, and let's put disruptive in the adjectives as well. All right, and then you're done, right? And I find the first time I do rupt with students, they really struggle with it. All right, they might think of erupt, and that's about it. All right, so if you think about it this way, if you think about, okay, I've got the alphabet, it's a system I can use to help me think. It's actually really easy to do it, and I actually did find most of my students, after we'd done this a few times, they could easily fill out 12 words containing rupt, and they almost recite it just like learning your times tables: abrupt, bankrupt, corrupt, disrupt, erupt, interrupt. Then you would go on to rupture, which is to break. All right, so I'll post a blank sheet of this if anyone would like to have a go at it. And yeah, I find it's a really good way to improve vocabulary and make you able to guess words that you've never seen before based on the parts of the word, the roots of the word.